Today's guest is Lisa Bodell, a futurist, keynote speaker, and the founder of FutureThink, whose work has helped some of the world's largest organizations, from Google and Pfizer to Citigroup and the US Navy, strip away the complexity that stops good people doing great work. Lisa is the author of two best-selling books, Kill the Company and Why Simple Wins, and ranks among the top 50 speakers worldwide. But what makes her thinking genuinely useful is for mid-market businesses is that she doesn't just diagnose the problem of complexity, she hands you the tools to dismantle it. At the center of her work is a deceptively simple idea. When the most important work isn't getting done, it's not the people that need fixing, it's the work itself. Lisa, welcome to the Evolution Partners podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you. Why are intelligent people so good at building lives and companies that make them miserable?
That is such a good question. Because, you know what, we Frankenstein things with the best of intentions. We want to move quickly, so we just add things because adding means adding value. And we don't stop to think, what should we get rid of? And so what happens is things become more complex, not easier. And so I think most of us set out to do a good job, but because we're trying to move so quickly, that's where things get pretty complex. We don't have time to stop and think. We just keep adding more.
And the answer to solve my problem is to add something new, it seems.
Add something new. I mean, really, the thing that I think would be really helpful for people, especially for leaders and people that are founders here listening in the podcast, is to start thinking more like sculptors and less like builders. Because we seem to think that building and adding more is that more value, but people are overwhelmed. It doesn't really matter if you add more if it's not valuable. And the reason I say sculpting is because, a sculpture is where you get rid of the things that aren't of value to reveal the masterpiece inside. And so for more of us, especially with business owners, they don't have to have more products. They just have to have the right products. They don't have to have more processes, just the right processes. And I think if more of us thought that way in terms of sculpting versus building, that would help. I also think you need to think in terms of subtraction, not just addition, and we can get into that too. That's another mindset shift that I think we need as humans. We think subtracting is bad, and it's not.
Yeah, there's so many things that come to mind. The first is there's a famous blog post by Jim Collins called The Stop List. And I thought about that a few times. That's just a single blog post, but you've got a career and books about this topic and why it's so important. The second is Marshall Goldsmith saying, "What got you here won't get you there." And I think that a part of that, as you were saying that, I'm really thinking it is about subtraction. It is about saying, let's not figure out, just so I've got here, now I need to do the new thing different or better. It's also, I need to take things away perhaps.
Yeah, because we equate subtraction with loss, and that's fundamentally not right. I mean, I think we should we should think about subtraction more as focus. And that's really important in a world where we are so time starved, and time is such an important asset that we are just giving it away all the time. And if we would subtract things so we could focus more on what's important, I think people would be happier, they'd be less stressed, and they'd be more successful, especially as business owners and mid-market people. So I think subtraction has to become part of our business process, and we can't view it as a loss. We have to view it as focus, and we have to reward people for subtracting too, so they don't feel like they're losing something in the process. That's a very important thing to remember. You have to reward people for doing it. Otherwise, they'll have fear of getting rid of things.
Why do you think it's the human default or nature? Do you think it's just built into us to think to add things on? Why do you think we get in this situation where it feels so normal to just add rather than either add or subtract?
Well, there's something, we get attached to things really easily. There's something fundamental about, when people, they buy something, even if they don't like it, but getting rid of it, like, those old clothes you're never going to wear, but you think, oh God, I think I'm just going to hold on to them a little bit more just in case, because we attach value to it. And if we get rid of something, it's actually, we view it as a kind of a knock to our judgment. Oh God, I shouldn't have bought that in the first place. Why did I do that? Why did I build that? If you get rid of something, it's seen as a loss. It's seen as a judgment against your better judgment. And so I think we have to, as leaders with our teams, recalibrate that a bit. And so this is about getting rid of things that they may have been good at one point, but they've outlived their time. And that's a very different mentality than that they were bad in the first place. So it's kind of like weeding a garden. You have to get rid of things for other things to grow. And that's how you should be running your business. You shouldn't keep everything in the garden. You got to get rid of things so whatever you plant has enough space and resources to be able to flourish. And we don't do that well within our companies.
And so I think about being organized and how being organized isn't the same as being or as simplifying, because we've got a lot of you could be very highly organized but not simple. You're just organized at doing a lot of stuff. So how do people become highly organized but they're still wasting time?
I think everybody here that's listening, you've probably experienced this too, is you have staff and even yourselves, where you have spreadsheets that look amazing and say nothing. Like they're so organized, but you'll never use them, or they take so long to explain them and so long to do something with. And really, it would have been better just to have less. And I always use the analogy of like Marie Kondo, the simplification expert. The beauty of what she does isn't that she organizes everything in your closet per se. It's that she gets rid of the things that don't bring you joy. So what's left has space to breathe and you focus on using that, the valuable stuff. And it's the same thing at work, right? You've got to have some kind of culling process and some kind of review process that says, not does this bring you joy, right? So many things are going to be
Yeah.
like, that does not bring me joy. But, does this serve a purpose? Does it really serve a purpose? And what if we didn't do it? And you'd be surprised at how much you can get rid of. It's just people have this, again, it's like a attachment, right, to things. And they have to start to get rid of slowly and in small ways to get rid of stuff, whether it's emails or meetings or invites, before they can really start attacking processes and policies and those kinds of things.
It makes me think about the 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 amateur takes a long time to explain something. The master can really explain it very simply, when you're talking about spreadsheets and a lot of those things. So to simplify it means that you really master or masterful or really deeply understand what you're doing. What's your take on that?
I think that's true. When I think about simplicity, I think about confidence. And the reason for that, just like you said, is, when someone can just explain something without having to over explain it or try to sound smart, all those things, there's a certain confidence to it. So I really think, especially in communications these days when we are so overwhelmed, the communications that break through are the simplest. They're the most confident. They're the clearest. And that's where simplicity can really win. I think you come off as more of an expert in things. And simplicity isn't easy, by the way. It's not easy to simplify. Like you said, it's easier to write a 10-page memo than it is to write a one-page.
Yeah.
But people that really master getting to the point, they are the experts. So I think simplicity actually speaks volume to the personality of the leader.
And so simplification, people think that that is about saving time. And you said sort of 10 pages versus one. But you seem to think, or you seem to propose that there is much more to it that. What can you tell us about simplification, or what else can you tell us about simplification then?
I'm glad you said that, because so many people view simplicity, like when they have me come in and do talks, some of the first reactions are, I really need people to be more efficient or need them to be more productive. And my first reaction if a leader says that to me is, you shouldn't do it then. Because when you go to your team and say, I want you to simplify because I need you to be more efficient and productive, their response is, go to hell. Their response is kind of like, I am efficient. I'm just overwhelmed with too much stuff. It's not about organizing my to-do list better. It's about paring it down. There's
Yeah.
a difference. And so that's where I really think you have to think about simplicity as it's a strategic advantage. It gives you speed and it gives you focus and it gives you clarity. In a world especially driven by AI that's moving really quickly and we're inundated with noise, that is a competitive advantage. So I think that's a better message when you say to your team, hey, I want you to be able to focus on what matters. Your time is too valuable. That's I can get on board with that. That's more like mission driven versus I need you to be more efficient. You're not working hard enough. I think that's a falsehood and would be the wrong way to go about it.
And so how does it change your frame of thinking on your topics when it comes to AI? Because it is a interesting world that we're stepping into, and I think that AI can make our lives simpler and more complex in perhaps equal measures,
Very
depending on
much
how
so.
you look at it, certainly for business people. How does AI change the framing for you?
I've always said when people say, "Does technology help you or hurt you when it comes to simplicity?" And the answer is yes, because it allows me to do more. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it's the same thing with AI. I can do so much with AI, but a lot of the stuff that it spits out is false, inaccurate, and sounds good but has no depth. And in fact, I'm speaking to you now. We were just talking about this before we turned on the recording from Austin, Texas. I'm here giving a keynote, and I'm talking about how do you unleash innovation in the age of AI. And I believe the future, it's AI enabled, but it's human led. And here's why. AI takes care of the mundane. It takes all the complex, the kind of machine stuff, the repetitive stuff, the mundane stuff, the work of work off your plate to create the space for the thinking to happen. And so what AI can do is simplify, right? It can give me back time so I can do the things that humans are best at: thinking, judgment, decision making, creativity, context. Those are the things that I think we need to. That's the reason why I think we need to simplify when it comes to AI, is so we can do the things that our humans are meant to do. That's really the benefit, is the human intelligence that AI creates the space for.
But it can mean that we have to think faster. If we're producing more because of AI, or some of the mundane decisions are being taken away, it can mean that we have to think faster, and therefore we need to become better at what you're proposing, perhaps, which is focusing in and removing the noise, the clutter, being able to say no to everything else other than, okay, this is the next perhaps creative decision that I need to make to point that AI in the right direction.
I think, it's interesting because my company, we focus on how do you build those human skills in the age of AI? And here's why. I think there's going to be uh, kind of a come to Jesus, as they say, that's happening with AI, because right now the technology spend, if you look at an AI transformation budget, 93% of it is spent in technology and only 7% of it is spent on people using it. And so what happens is that we're investing in all this technology. We're having, the whole token maxing of everyone's got to just use it, but use it for what? And how do you actually make sure that the people using it understand the context? They're not doing redundant work. They're not using it for things that are false. They know how to use it in the right way. That's where training people, and this is what we haven't done for so long, and we need to, in judgment, creativity, creative problem solving, curiosity, decision making, has to happen, because that now becomes the human work. And I think that
Yeah.
AI, yeah, it's going to focus to make more decisions. But ideally, if we use it correctly, especially with agentic, I think it's going to give us a lot more time. It's interesting. I just, in the last 2 months, gave my team the mandate that they have to use AI for everything. They cannot send me anything unless they put it through AI. And their job is to create one new agent a week. And the goal is to take all the mundane work off their plate. In 30 days, we've created 30 agents. So I have a synthetic workforce of 30 people. And we do not touch Salesforce anymore. It's all automated. I do not touch a single scheduling thing. There are no meeting notes. All our call reports are done. All our proposals are reviewed. It's all done in AI. And the reason I'm saying that is that frees me up to now do more decision making and have time to think. So I think once we really get into this whole AI as agentic and beyond, it's going to be more than just putting stuff into AI and figuring out what's BS and what's not. It's going to truly be doing task work and giving us time.
Earlier, 5 minutes ago, you made the comment something like, correct me if I'm wrong,
Mm.
AI creates material that is wordy, or there's a lot in it, but there's not a lot of substance to it, something like that.
It can be. Yeah, it depends. I
Yeah,
mean, that's where people, that you really need to understand the power of the prompt, right? And
yeah.
it's ironic, because when we teach people to ask questions and to communicate, we teach them to be succinct. But when we teach them to prompt, what we need to do is to be, I think, very in depth. and to give it a lot of context and a lot of thinking up front. So what it gives us in return is what we need. I mean, AI is only as good as the data it has and the input you give it. And most people don't have good data and they don't know how to give good input. So there's some training, again, that needs to be involved so the output we get is better. Right now, that's so much slop, it's wasting time. It's not helping, I think, in a lot of instances.
And it's frustrating for recipients, that's for sure.
It is.
I want to come back and ask you, what are people actually afraid of when they can't say no to something?
Well, there's a bunch of things. I mean, I think the number one driver, by the way, of complexity, like not being able to say no, is fear. And it's fear of missing out. It's fear of looking dumb, right? It's fear of getting rid of something that they shouldn't. Really what it is fear of being fired. That's what it is. Now, in your personal life, it's fear of hurting someone's business, for hurting someone's feelings. That's why we do so much out of obligation. But in business, it's more politics and it's more fear of getting fired. So that's where I think two things have to happen when it comes to simplicity. First of all, leaders have to model the behavior. They have to do it. Because if they don't do it, other people won't do it. And the other thing is you have to give people clear guardrails around what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. So that clarity piece and then the role modeling takes the fear away. Too many leaders focus on taking away the friction, like clearing the process, getting rid of the meeting, but they don't take away the fear. And if you don't take away the fear, it's not going to stick. That's a really key thing to remember for people because most people operate in fear.
And so how do you overcome that? How do you?
Well, I'll give you an example of how I do it. So we have a really great program and we've rolled it out for others around the world. It's so simple, called Kill the Stupid Rule. And I love to talk about this because it's so easy. And I mean, you know what it is just when I say it. But the idea is, again, how do you get people to get rid of things? And you can't just tell them to do it. You actually need to set up a structure and show them that you mean it. And so every quarter with my team, when we have our quarterly reviews, our quarterly strategy meetings, the end of that meeting is always a Kill a Stupid Rule session. And I'm telling you, Brett, it is the thing everyone looks forward to. I mean, really, like the killing session is what everyone's so excited about, right? But I view that as a CEO as a real badge of honor because I practice what I preach. Like, I don't want you guys spending time on crap that you don't need to. I want you to challenge rules, all that kind of stuff. And the first time we did it, I said, what rules would you like to get rid of so you can meet your goals? And people brought tons of ideas. And the majority of the ideas were my stupid rules, which was a really good learning, right? It was all the stupid stuff. I thought, I'm an amazing boss. I'm putting all these great policies in place. And apparently not the case. But what was really freeing was seeing, first of all the themes that were consistent that everyone gave, together talking through them and understanding why they weren't good rules, and also revealing that most of the things people came up with weren't rules. They were just like annoyances or stupid things that have outlived their time. But I gave them a structured way and a forum to speak up, and I killed things. So you can't be a boss that has these forums. It's like asking for feedback and then not taking any action on it.
Yeah.
So we got rid of dozens of things. We do it every quarter. And I know it works, Brett, because every time we get together, people have a harder time coming up with things to get rid of because we've just gotten rid of so much stuff. And that's really great.
This episode is brought to you by Evolution Partners, where we help leaders to confidently build enduring great companies using our proven, structured, strategic planning process that ensures you build and execute the right plan to build the business that you want and the life that you want. Check us out at evolutionpartners.com.au. And you can also check out our books, Made to Thrive, which is about the 5 roles of a CEO, becoming a great CEO rather than just a good CEO in your business. Second is Onboarded, which is about hiring and onboarding great people, making sure that you give yourself the greatest chance for people to succeed in your organization. And then third is Bigger Isn't Better, Better is Better, which is about building a business that is better rather than bigger. It's not about building a little business. It's about building a business that compounds, a business that you can actually fall in love with again. Yeah. What are some examples of stupid rules that you've killed either in your firm or that you've seen other people kill?
So many. I mean, it's always things like people thought there was a nepotism clause that you couldn't hire, somebody, a relative or a friend, and people would speak up and go, "No one said that you couldn't do that," or you couldn't hire someone back that had left but still had institutional knowledge and they wanted to come back. Why do meetings have to be 60 minutes? No one said they had to be 60 minutes. Why aren't they 30? Let's try it. Why is this monthly operating report done in 5 different versions? I didn't know it was done in 5 different versions. Why don't we just do one and archive the others? I was just at NBC Universal. This was out in Burbank, California, on the studio lots. And they literally I had the CEO, the CTO, the CIO, the CLO, Chief Legal Officer, this is key, and all the business heads there. And someone spoke up and said, "Oh my God, this one report comes out in 70 versions each month, 70 for each business head, and everyone gets it." And of course, the C-suite people were shocked and somewhat furious. Like, what do you mean this is happening? Well, the business people thought that the C-suite wanted it. The C-suite was like, "Why is this happening?" The CEO looks at the CIO and says, "Is this something we can fix?" He says, "Yeah." And he looks at the CLO and says, "Is there a legal reason that we're doing this?" And he said, "No." They officially killed it and they got down to one report from 70. It's a forum that just gets rid of unnecessary work. And usually it's not rules. So to me, that's like one example that, believe me, does it change the culture quickly? And it's amazing the way that people get into it, and it builds a kind of a muscle,
Yeah.
right, for sculpting, and people love it. I would suggest trying it.
That's fascinating. I think back to when I was a young upstart entrepreneur and thought I was so clever, and I hired an accountant well beyond what I should have hired, and got them to produce a pack that must have been 20 or 30 pages about everything that was happening every month. And then after several months, I started thinking to myself,
The
but I'm only
stress.
well, I'm only, yeah, but I get it put on my desk, so I'm okay. I'm not doing the work. But I'm only turning to page 14 or whatever it was and looking at two or
Right.
three things. And then suddenly it dawned on me, why am I getting all of these things done when I'm not paying any attention to them? There must be a simpler way.
This is it. And it's the thing of, and there was another one where somebody, a CHRO was in the room and everyone was saying how they wanted to get rid of the MOR, the monthly operating report. And everyone was like, so excited to get rid of this report. And the CHRO said, "Well, that's my report. Why do you guys want to get rid of my report?" And someone actually raised their hand and said, I produce it each month, but I never send it. And no one has ever called me out on it. So I know no one's reading it. And so the CHRO said, "You know what? I'm worried about getting rid of it because I thought I needed this report. Let's pilot getting rid of it for 3 months. And if nobody misses it, we'll kill it." They killed it in 3 months. Nobody missed it. So there's also this thing of like, again, remember the fear of letting go, doing something wrong? You can pilot getting rid of something and then realize, I thought that was a good idea, but it's outlived its time. Let's just stop it. That's actually a strong thing for a boss to do too, is to admit, like, I'll try it and then we'll get rid of it. It's okay.
There's a author in the US, I think one of the southern states, Dr. Henry Cloud, who wrote a book called Necessary Endings, and a fabulous book because it, a little bit like you just said in that end piece, it really says to us, it's okay to finish things. Like, you've got to be appreciative and understand that the worst thing you can do is keep something for too long and not finish it.
It's it might have been good when it started, but now it's just outlived its time. Because people get very attached, going back to the kill stupid rule, they get very attached to their rules. Remember, everyone thinks that everyone else is the problem. Your rules are stupid, Brad, but mine are great. So
Yes.
if you want to kill my rules, I get offended, but killing your rules, no problem. So that there's that dynamic of that human ego in there of letting go or feeling judged, that's why the leader always has to go first, because we're not judging the person or whatever. It's just not time for it anymore. Business moves on. It's AI. And I think when you get in that mindset, they get into it pretty quickly.
My firm, we do strategic planning offsites for mid-market companies. And so we spend a lot of time in offsites in the way that you described. What is your advice to to those leaders? Is it as simple as set an agenda item that is kill a stupid rule and then facilitate that conversation to say, what is a stupid rule that should be killed? Is it just that simple?
Almost. It really is. And because I've seen it. We did it with 40,000 people at Pfizer. I mean, like, literally, it's so easy because people get into it. But you should set a couple ground rules, and especially if you're in a regulated industry. Here are the two rules. One is, if it's industry regulated or government mandated, don't touch those rules because you'll go to jail. So let's not worry about those. Everything else is fair game. And the other thing is to focus on your sphere of control. So especially what happens is if you don't set that guardrail, like focusing on your everyday work or what your team does, people start to complain about, legal, IT, HR, and those are bigger things that you're not going to change overnight. So sphere of control is really the kind of the charity starts at home, and focus there first because that's the low-hanging fruit.
That's nice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a quote I want to attribute to you. Correct me if I'm misattributing. And oh God, what's he going to say?
No.
Um, people aren't leading their lives; they're executing their calendars. So,
Mm.
what does that do to a leader over time?
Well, you kind of miss the big picture. You're not your metric for success is off. Getting through your calendar and getting through your to-do list each day is not a measure of progress. It's daily progress, but I don't know. It doesn't matter if you're doing everything right if you're not doing the right things. And so that's what I like to say to people, which is, first of all, is what's on your calendar really necessary? I think people need to better use their time with intent and be more selfish with their time, right? Nobody has the right to take your time, really. And I also think that as a leader, we need to do a better job of telling others that they need to be intentional with their time, because otherwise you are just executing your calendar every day. I'll tell you one other trick that is really interesting that we do at my company. And I've now got people at NBC and Accenture doing this, which is uninviting people to things. So I think it's really cool. It's a badge of honor in my company if you were uninvited to something, because it basically means your time is way too important, get out of here. And everybody says, like, we're on a status meeting, we start talking about a different topic. I'll say to Kylie or Kelly or Tom, you guys, do you want to uninvite yourselves? And they're like, oh God, yes, thank you. And they're so excited because it's not that they're not important and they don't have FOMO. It's that I've given them the gift of go back and focus on what's important.
Here's
I
some
think
free
that's something
time.
really cool. Yeah, it's free
Yeah.
time. But the uninvite is what's really interesting because we always are worried about not inviting enough people, and I think we should be more intentional about what's the least number of people that need to be here.
And so what is the mindset that we're adopting? I think about many times I've been in situations with CEOs where they're like, look at my calendar. It's just bang, 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 one after the other. Now I've got my amateur advice that I would give to them that might work once in a while. What are you suggesting in that situation?
Well, some of the biggest things about using your time with intent is just saying a couple things. First of all, is I time box everything. So, for example, I'm a keynote speaker, so I have a lot of kickoff calls, and people would just litter my calendar all over the place with them. So I'd only have like 15 minutes between things, and it was completely inefficient. And I just said, I only do these things on these days. And I got tremendous pushback on it. Oh, clients aren't going to go for that. They were fine with it. So, it's trying to put down boundaries on time that gives me chunks of free time, not just little things of free time. The other thing is everything in my meetings. I don't want people telling me how busy they are and impressing me with their to-do list. So every meeting has to start with since we last met. And so the idea is, right, so what's progress since we last met? I think that's another way that people can get focused on, tell me what's new, not don't make me impressed with all the things that you have going on, because that's a waste of my time. What do you say?
Well, because we work with scaling companies, often what used to work isn't working anymore. So effectively, given the current role that you're performing, which might be different than it was a year or two ago, what does the new version of you today look like, and the emerging version of you and your role? That means that this is where your priorities should lie. So, for example, you're still attending this meeting. This person that you're meeting with should be stepping up and taking accountability for that function. And so really trying to essentially prioritize it, A, and then B, time box thinking time. So suggest that how many hours a week should you allocate? And it could be 3 hours or 5 hours. Or let's block that out as an enduring meeting that no one can move.
That's interesting. So I didn't talk about this. Another thing we do at my organization is we mandate deep work. So everyone has to have half a day blocked for deep work. I don't care when it is. But I say that too because then I don't want anybody coming to me later and saying, well, I just don't have time to think. And I'll say, well, so when is your half day? Are you using it? And if they say no, I go, why? So, you have to have some people, they need to take accountability for blocking their time too and using with intent. And it starts with me, right?
I think the other thing is beginning to do is to advise leaders to start blocking aside preparation time for meetings, because the purpose of the meeting is to make decisions. And if you're not making decisions in a meeting, then you shouldn't be having the meeting. But then before that is the valuable deep think time. It might only be, let's allocate 15 minutes to prepare for that meeting, but trying to get that level of structure so they can think.
Yeah, there's another good trick I'll tell you I learned from Microsoft, which is every meeting is done in questions, meaning the subject line for every meeting is a question, right? Which is, this is the question we're going to be answering in the meeting. And that gets people think, because questions hijack your brain, right? So
Yeah.
it gets people thinking before they come. So that makes it more productive. And it also makes you, as the person inviting or creating the meeting, think about, why the hell am I having this meeting in the first place? So, there's other ways to get people to be more intentional about time. And some of these tricks that I've picked up from others over the years, they're really good. They're really good. So, the answer is out there. We just have to, I think, try a couple things to get people started. Don't try everything. So they really get more intentional about their time. It becomes the front of their brain, not an afterthought.
Leaders are told to be bold, but not too bold. They're told to make decisions quickly, but get consensus. They're told
Mm.
to drive results, but be nice to their team. Do you think that empathy in leadership can become unhealthy accommodation?
1,000,000%. Yeah, I like to talk about provocative things. I mean, God, I had a book called Kill the Company, but I think that the idea is you have to have some provocative thinking to change or shake people out of the behaviors or behavior ruts that they're in.
Yeah.
And I think where we are with leadership right now is we've forgotten what the definition of what leadership is. And the purpose of a leader isn't to make people comfortable, it's to make them capable. And we have spent so much time making people comfortable. Now, I'm going to speak as somebody here who works with global companies, but primarily from the States, right? So your perspective or listeners might be different. That said, I think we've swung from command and control, which for those of us that have a few more city miles on us, when we first started working, that's how work was. You showed up, you put in your hours, you were loyal. Now it's endless accommodation. And I truly mean that. It is endless
Yeah.
accommodation without accountability. And it can't be. So, if people don't want to come to the office, well, maybe that's not their job for them. Or, they want to be able to have flexible time during the day to go to the doctor, but then they put a hard boundary down. If you need a meeting at 5:30, you don't get both.
Yeah.
So I think really having clarity around that is really important for leaders because the pyramid is flipped and every work keeps going up, not down. And I don't think that's sustainable. I have a lot to say about this, but our job is to make people capable, and that's a two-way street. It's not just the job of the leader. People have to want to do it too, and we can't do that if all they're asking is for endless accommodation. There's work to be done.
And then we begin to segregate the workforce into top performers and poor performers and mediocre performers. So
Great. In my opinion, great. Yeah.
yes. I apologize if I follow your train of thought there. And so then, when leaders don't hold standards and they tolerate too much mediocrity,
This is when the
the,
top performers leave.
that's my question. Then the top performers leave.
This is the issue, is that we're so worried about trying to keep everyone happy is that, I don't really give a crap about the low performers. I mean, I hate to say that, but I care about people, but not if people think it's okay to not perform and stay. That's entitlement. And I think, in my opinion, it's when you put up with somebody too long. You know this when you've seen this with mediocre performers. The mediocre people stay, but the good people leave, and that is a waste of time, a waste of money, and it's a waste of corporate resources. So I think there is accountability when people come to work that it's a two-way contract. You have to be able to bring your expertise, and you commit to a role and to goals. And in exchange, the company needs to give you a salary and benefits and clarity around what's expected. And then you go. But if it's constantly an endless accommodation and we're constantly renegotiating the contract, that's not a two-way street. And that's what's happening right now. That's why leader burnout is becoming increasingly high. In fact, there's a great stat. Only 23% of people in organizations, the lower ranks, want to become leaders. I mean, they know leadership sucks. They don't want to do it.
I think it sucks when you accommodate too much. I think that when the boundaries are clear, and I think that when the boundaries are clear, it and you know that high performance or mediocrity or low performance is a choice. You choose to be a low performer, that's okay. You choose to be a high performer, okay, within reason. But I think that you can build an organization whereby it is easier to be a leader, and you can build an organization, or you can choose to build an organization where those trade-offs
Mhm.
make it harder to lead.
This also ties into simplicity, by the way,
Yeah.
which is, when you have an organization that values meaningful work, that values your time, I mean, that's kind of builds into simplicity drives culture, right? If you get the work right, you get the culture right. And that allows leaders to be able to focus on meaningful things, to act with clarity, to be supported. So I think there's a lot of things that tie together with that. Because when you work in a complex organization, it's easy for people to hide. It's easy for them to say, oh, there's too many complex priorities. I don't understand what my role is, which is a very common thing. But in simplified organizations where there's clarity, there's nowhere to hide, and those excuses go away. So it really benefits leadership to have a simplified organization.
And when it comes to simplification, some people would listen to your message and think, perhaps wrongly, that simplification is a luxury. It's great to do a keynote talk or write a book about it, but it falls apart when you're in my seat running a 200-person company and a payroll. What would you say to them if that is their reaction?
Help me understand how simplification is a luxury. What do we mean by
Well,
that?
what I mean is they might think, I don't have that luxury. I don't have my world is too complicated. There are
Okay.
too many things that are going on, because as soon as I look up, there's someone else coming in who's got a problem. There's just lots happening. Now I
Well, well,
realize. Go on.
Well, if you're talking about there's unnecessary and necessary complexities. So if you work in a regulated industry, and by the way, the majority of industries that my company works with, on purpose and proudly, are intelligence agencies
Yeah.
globally, finance, and healthcare. And believe me, each of those industries thinks they have it harder than the other. But each of those industries, everyone will always say, well, we can't simplify because we're regulated. And I'll say wrong, because there are people within those industries that are simplified and ones that aren't, and they have the same regulations. And so the difference is the leadership and how they approach the operations in the business. There is necessary complexity, right? We don't want the banks to lose our money. We don't want people to die from bad drugs, all the things, right? We don't want misplaced intelligence. So there is some necessary complexity, but there's a lot of unnecessary complexity, and that is invisible work. It's invisible waste. It's things that we can get rid of. So if a leader came to me and said, I don't have that luxury, I would say, but you have the luxury to deal with complexity that slows you down. So, I can rattle off a million stats of what the benefit simplicity gives you, from your stock outperforms your competitors by over 200%. Your people are more likely to stay. They have 95% more trust in their leadership. You get back 10% of your profits. There's so much that you get behaviorally and monetarily. I would be hard pressed to understand why dealing with complexity has to be standard operating procedure.
Yeah, I believe it's a fallacy. I believe it's a story that people tell themselves that got them into that situation, but I still know that people would say that.
Yeah. Well, so that's where we start with, I also say to people, what would you like to be able to do? Well, a few things. What do you spend your day doing? 99.9% of the time, no matter where I am around the world, people say meetings and emails. Those are not regulated. What would you like to do less of? and it's meetings, it's the work of work, things that AI will take off your plate, by the way, or that you shouldn't be doing or you should be killing with stupid rules. And what would you like to do more of? It's always thinking, strategy, meet with customers. But what gets in their way are the complexities that they can get rid of in their sphere of control. So
Yeah.
you can also walk them through their own experience and see how getting rid of things could actually be beneficial on a day-to-day basis.
What is a book that you would recommend for our audience that's perhaps had an impact on you?
So I really love social psychology because I think when it comes down to it, everything comes down to, human nature. So, we can create lots of processes, but it's amazing how they become complex because of us humans, right? So I love the book The Social Animal from David Brooks. And it was something it talked about the journey of people when they were born up through their lifetime and when they died. And it tells it in a story form. But it really gets at the complexities of human nature and how understanding that can benefit you in so many ways personally as well as professionally. And I think it's a book that should be taught in business schools. Like I've always
Mm.
thought that business schools and psychology schools should be merged because business is human. And if we can understand people, we better drive business.
And the more you escalate the org chart, the more that social skills are necessary to lead well.
100%. 100%. They EQ more than IQ a lot of the times.
How can people learn more about you and the work that you do?
Welcome to go to lisabodell.com, which is where you can learn about what I speak about, or futurethink.com. Please link in with me as well. I'm happy to do that. I post a lot in terms of newsletters and thought pieces, and that's a great way to get in touch.
What haven't we covered off today that you'd hoped to cover off?
Oh my gosh. Uh, I don't know. I don't know.
That's a
I
good
don't know.
answer.
I don't know. I don't know. I prefer to keep it simple. Nothing.
What a wonderful and relevant answer. Thank you. And Lisa Bodell, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. I know
Thanks,
we
Brett.
caught you as you were traveling, and I appreciate that you've spent the time with us because, yeah, it was such a rich and rewarding conversation. Your wisdom has it's certainly given me some different ways to think. So thank you.
Thank you, Brad. It's a pleasure.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. If you'd be kind enough to leave a review for the podcast, that'd be really helpful to other like-minded entrepreneurs, and then we can grow our community. If you want to find out more about our guests, head over to evolutionpartners.com.au/podcast, where you can find show notes and other additional reading. Hope to see you back next week. Until then, keep thriving.